Oh, hey, didn't see you there. What's going on? Welcome to my first ever History Goon Patreon exclusive. You people, get a little bonus here and there. I'm not sure if it's going to be a weekly thing. Probably not. I'm probably going to shoot for like every couple weeks, getting something extra out for you because I'm still going to be putting a lot of time and effort into the main show and maybe some other things that are going to come to fruition. I'm not sure. We're working on stuff. I got plans. Things might happen. Anyway, I wanted to start us off right in my wheelhouse with something weird as hell. Picture this. It's a sweltering night in August in Kentucky, 1955, out in the middle of nowhere. No air conditioning, no TV, no phone, no running water. You're playing cards in the farm outside of a tiny dot on the map called Kelly. The population of, who knows, not a bunch. The plan for the evening's simple. We're going to enjoy some good company. We're going to stay cool. We're going to call it a night. Nobody on the planet is expecting anything to happen, especially not here in Kelly. Little town, not a lot going on here. And then I'm going to start off by saying this. I love Kentucky. I've been there before. It's a great state. I've never met anybody in Kentucky that was rude or didn't like me. Matter of fact, the only place I really stopped in Kentucky was at a Buc-ee's, which was fantastic. And then we stopped at a Walmart to buy a mount for my son so he could put the tablet on the back window so that he could watch Bluey. He was 9 months old, so he was getting a little testy. So we're walking through Walmart, and the only interaction we had was with a small little girl. My now ex-wife and I were talking. We happened to walk by this little girl and her mom, and she goes, "Mama, they talk funny," and I laughed so fucking hard. It was incredible. Like, if I were going to move anywhere in the country, it'd probably be Tennessee. But still, that direction, people that way, pretty cool. I liked it down south. It was nice. So I say all of that to tell you this guy's name. And it's just, if I didn't tell you the story was in Kentucky, and I just led with the guy's name, you'd go, this story takes place in Kentucky. His name, and I shit you not, is Billy Ray Taylor. He goes outside to get some water from the well, and he just happens to look up. It's a nice night, nice and clear. You can see the stars. He also sees a large metallic object streak across the sky and drop into a gully about a block away, a city block away, not a country block. They don't have blocks out there. So, call it 1,000 feet away. Billy Ray goes back inside and tells everyone what he just saw. They laughed at him because this is the middle of nowhere in Kentucky, and nothing like that happens here. It's 1955. Nothing like that's going to happen here. That's when the evening got complicated. Billy Ray, he's not done. About an hour later, the family dog loses its whole ass mind outside, and suddenly the evening gets very, very complicated. What followed is 4 hours of what can only be described as the most batshit, well-documented alien encounter in American history. My name's Kevin, and this is History Goon. The towns of Kelly and Hopkinsville sit about 12 miles apart in Christian County, Kentucky. 724 square miles of farmland, about 70 miles west of Bowling Green. The farm itself belonged to Glennie Langford, a woman who, and I cannot stress this enough, did not allow the use of alcohol in her home. She had a zero tolerance policy. Nothing. Dry. Bone dry. Always blew my mind, though, that, yes, I get that there's areas down south where you have dry counties, which is fine. You do you. The Jack Daniels distillery being in a dry county always kind of didn't make any sense to me. But so I bring this up because it's relevant. And later on, when we start running into skeptics of this story, they're obviously going to go, oh, these hillbillies are drunk. They didn't see anything. They're alcoholics. Our cast of characters on the night of August 21st, 1955 is as follows. Glennie Langford, her 3 young children, Lonnie, Charlton, and Mary, her 2 adult sons from a previous marriage, Elmer, who goes by Lucky, his last name is Sutton, and John Charlie, or J.C. Sutton, and their respective wives, Vera and Elaine. Rounding out the group are Elaine's brother, O.P. Baker, and visiting friend Billy Ray Taylor, and his wife, June. Billy Ray and the Suttons were reportedly, allegedly, nomadic carnival workers, or as we would usually call them, carnies, which is either completely irrelevant for the most part, or the most relevant detail in the entire story, depending on who you want to ask. We have 11 people total on a small farm in an unpainted 3-room house with no running water, no phone, no radio, no TV, and no books. For the area and time frame, the no books thing might make sense. The most important thing that there's none of in this story is anything for any of these people to gain by telling the story that they're about to tell. Around 7 p.m., Billy Ray steps outside to draw water from the well. While he's out there, he hears a strange sound and looks up to see a large, shining metallic object. Glennie Langford later described it as looking like a, quote, 5-gallon gasoline can with a head on top and small legs, streaking across the sky and landing in a gully nearby. He goes back in and tells the group, and the group, as we've already kind of established, thinks he's full of shit. Thinks he's pulling their leg. And about an hour passes. Then the dogs go absolutely insane outside. Lucky and Billy Ray, because they're from Kentucky and they're good American boys, grab their guns, a 20-gauge shotgun and a .22 pistol, and step out to see what the hell is going on outside. They walked a few yards from the front door, and there it is. A creature maybe 3.5 to 4 feet tall, walking towards them with its hands raised. Like it's surrendering, or like it doesn't understand what guns are, which, as we're about to find out shortly, it absolutely did not understand what guns are. But because we don't negotiate with terrorists or intergalactic beings, he's about to learn about American freedom and democracy. Everyone that saw it pretty consistently recorded the creature as being 3 to 4 feet tall with an almost perfectly round, oversized head, long spindly arms that drop nearly to the ground, ending in talon-like claws. It's got short legs with no discernible knees, eyes that glow yellow, and the appearance of some kind of metallic material covering it like a spacesuit, which created a shimmering effect as it moved. The Sutton kids, like the youngest of them, was 7, later confirmed the description on his own, like interviewed separately from everybody else so that we don't have adults influencing what a kid's seeing. He told them the same story. All of the sketches from multiple witnesses described almost exactly the same thing, with like small little details changed. Like you caught it from a different angle, so the eyes didn't look quite like this, they were more like this. Other than that, it's spot on. The story even held up years later when ufologist Isabel Davis conducted a pretty thorough investigation. It held up for Lucky Sutton until the day he died. Now for the part that I've titled 4 hours of intergalactic whack-a-mole. Lucky and Billy immediately opened fire on this thing because that's the American way. There's something strange in your property and you don't know what it is, you shoot it. Thumbs up. I greatly approve of this message. So as they shot it, this creature does a backward somersault and disappears. Vanishes. Poof, gone. They go back inside, and then, because apparently these things have no concept of taking a hint as to you're not welcome here, the creatures started appearing at the windows, peeking in. Just staring at these people in the dark with their giant glowing yellow eyes, because why not? What are you guys? What are you? I'm curious. For the next 4 hours, Lucky and Billy Ray waged what I can only describe as like the least effective military campaign that I've covered on the show. I've covered some pretty effective ones and some pretty not effective ones, and this is on the lower this is on the lower end of the bell curve of being a good one. They would fire through the windows, the creatures would flip backwards and float away, and then pop back up somewhere else. Every time they hit one of these, it would produce a metallic sound on impact, but there was never any blood. Nobody fell. Not a single one of these creatures seemed even mildly annoyed by being shot with a 20 gauge shotgun at close range. A 20 gauge is not as big as a 12 gauge, but still, I don't want to get shot with one, personally. No, I'm good. I don't want to do that. Things start to escalate about midway through when Billy Ray steps outside to check for bodies. As he's standing under the small overhang roof on the porch, a clawed hand reached down from above and grabbed him by the hair. His Aunt Eileen yanked him back inside before anything worse could happen. Lucky ran out, looked up, confirmed that one of these little bastards is sitting on the roof, and blasted it off. The creature didn't fall. It floated slowly to the ground and ran off. Like the picture, like you shot this thing and it was like you dropped a paper and it just kind of and just took its time getting to the ground and then just skedaddled afterwards. Then they spotted one in a nearby tree, shot it, watched it float down and scurry off into the woods. One appeared on a fence. They shot that one too. It does the same thing. Backflip, run away into the woods. Back inside, scraping sounds could be heard on the roof. There's more faces in the windows, some metallic sounds every time a round connected, with zero effect. By 11 p.m., all 11 people, 5 adults, plus Glennie and the 3 kids, have had enough. They make a break for it, and they run for 3 small trucks and floored it into the town of Hopkinsville. When they finally got an officer to talk to them, Lucky Sutton's opening line was, quote, "We've been fighting them for nearly 4 hours." So the local police chief, for what it's worth, kind of noted that these were not people who ran to the law for help, necessarily. Carnies kind of have a bit of a reputation of potentially being, not necessarily always doing things above board. These are the kind of people that, when shit gets ugly, they grab guns and solve it themselves, as we've seen them trying to do. So the fact that they drove to the police station, panicked as much as they were, was kind of a sign that we need to send people out there to see what's going on. The response to the call, and what you need to think about here for a second: 4 city police officers, 5 Kentucky state troopers, 3 deputy sheriffs, and 4 military police officers from Fort Campbell Army Base show up at this tiny little house. 20 law enforcement agents and military personnel total descended on the farmhouse in the middle of the night in rural Kentucky. The civilian officers being there makes a lot of sense. Like, you have your state police, your local police, your sheriff. Those guys make sense to respond to something like this. The military police from Fort Campbell is a detail that's a little bit stranger. Because just for shits and kicks, let's Google Maps this, because I know that I've mentioned Fort Campbell, Kentucky on here before, because that's the home of the Night Stalkers, who were the helicopter pilots during the Mogadishu episode. So they're not really dudes that are going to joke around, generally. Hopkinsville, Kentucky. And then directions to Fort Campbell. So with a quick Google search, Fort Campbell is only about 20 minutes from Hopkinsville. And Hopkinsville is like, where's Kelly? Because it's they're like right next to each other, I believe. Okay. So Kelly, Kentucky is about 10 minutes north of Hopkinsville, and then Fort Campbell is about 20 miles south of Hopkinsville. So it's right in the middle. So the response time from Fort Campbell makes sense, but military police being there for something like this brings up some questions. The U.S. military during the Cold War had active programs for tracking unknown aerial objects on radar, and it's entirely possible the radar station at Fort Campbell had been tracking something and they already kind of knew that there'd be a reason to send people out. But again, can't confirm that. We're also right in the middle of Project Blue Book, which was a actual official U.S. government program tracking UFOs. Which, who knows? Who knows? Maybe we'll go fucking wild on Patreon. Maybe we'll just do some weird stuff regularly. Because I got it up in my brain. Because I think I've mentioned it before. The other option, other than History Goon, was going to be me just doing paranormal and supernatural and weird stuff like this, because it's like right in my wheelhouse. You know, there's history here, and then there's weird shit here, and sometimes they just kiss, you know? So the investigators find no bodies, no spacecraft, and no physical evidence of anything out of this world. What they did find were bullet holes in the walls, windows, and screens of the house, and spent shell casings everywhere, especially in the areas exactly where Lucky and Billy Ray said that they had been when they were firing at these things, both inside and outside. The house has been shot up in a manner consistent with the entire family's account of what's going on. They found the screen door torn, and investigators documented the family's extreme visible distress, as they called it. Strange lights were reported in the surrounding woods by several other people in the area, and even a couple of the responding officers saw these weird lights out in the woods. The only officer to go on record publicly was Police Desk Sergeant Frank Dudas, who hadn't even been on duty the night, but he had reported his own UFO sighting earlier that summer. Quote, "I think the entire story is possible. I know I saw them. If I saw them, the Kelly Hopkinsville story certainly could be true." The investigators kind of wrap everything up at around 2 a.m. and leave. What happens after 2 a.m.? 3 a.m. After the police have already left, the family returns to the farm, and round 2 of the intergalactic assault takes place. Second verse, same as the first. Faces at the windows, glowing eyes. Lucky responds the same way as he responded the first time. Gunfire. Same result, absolutely nothing. Just metallic sound and them backflipping and running off into the woods. This continued for roughly another 90 minutes until the sun came up, at which point the creatures apparently decided that this is the wrong planet to be on, and they cleared out. When officers came back the next morning to follow up, the farm was completely empty. Neighbors told them that the Suttons had packed up and left after the creatures returned at 3:30 in the morning. The family's gone. The story, however, is just getting started. The first newspaper to report the incident was the Kentucky New Era. The next morning, they posted some stories about this. By the time the story reached the national press, including, I am not kidding, the New York Times, it's become something completely unrecognizable. We've hit the telephone game here. The creatures went from roughly 3 to 4 feet tall to anywhere between 2 and 15 feet tall, which is a little bit different. Gray became green, became red, became black. The relatively consistent description of the 7 adult witnesses are now buried under piles of bullshit. Hundreds of curiosity seekers show up at the farm to gawk and try to take souvenirs because people are weird and that's just what we do. The Sutton family, in a desperate attempt to get the trespassers to leave, tried charging admission to the farm. They were trying to get 50 cents to enter the grounds. And they were charging $1 for information, $10 to take pictures, and this was immediately used against them. So them trying to charge people to be there, to try to chase them off, got turned into they're turning this into a thing. The family would eventually leave the property entirely because of constantly being harassed. They made no money from this at all. They didn't even really make any money trying to scare people off. The repairs to the house from all the bullet holes that they'd fired themselves cost them a lot of money. So any money that they did make off of charging idiots to try to get them off their property went directly into fixing the house. Everything spent, nothing gained. Isabel Davis conducted a nearly 200-page investigation co-written with Ted Blocher. Not Blocher, I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name. They included a pretty detailed map, drawings of the creatures, documented records, witness interviews, and a lot of other really good information. Her conclusion was that none of the standard explanations, being like a deliberate hoax, a group hallucination, a publicity stunt, none of that stuff held up. The witnesses had no history of making weird claims, because a lot of the time with things like this, you'll have people that have made a bunch of claims about something, and you can't take them seriously because it's always been debunked. That's one of the reasons that so many people never think that we'll actually have real evidence of, like, Sasquatch, because there's so many people that are constantly making up bullshit. And there's one name that comes to mind that everybody seems to believe every time he puts a video out, except I remember early on when he started doing this stuff that he had to admit that he was faking shit. His name is Todd Standing. I know a lot of people that'll like watch his stuff and be like, oh my God, look, the thing's blinking. And you're like, yeah, but nothing else is moving. Like, there's no facial movement. It's just like a almost robotic looking blink. And then it's just a video of this thing sitting there for 5.5 minutes, not moving and occasionally blinking. And like the nose isn't moving or anything, like it's breathing. And it's really close, like incredibly close. So I think it's fake. There's a lot of real footage of things like that out there that I think is actually real. First one that would come to mind there would be the Patterson Gimlin, where they keep trying to say that it's fake, and then they can't prove that it's fake because they've never been able to recreate the gait or the fact that when you zoom in and look at it really closely, like as the thing's walking, you can actually see the muscles contracting and moving in the back and the legs. But it was just a guy in a suit back in the 60s where they had that kind of technology, of course. Anyway, we'll talk about Bigfoot some other time. So the story's, again, consistent across 7 adults in her reports as well. The sketches from the different witnesses were very, very similar. They differed in small areas because, of course, they're going to, because eyewitness things like that recreated in a sketch. Somebody gets it at a weird angle. It doesn't look quite the same. Now we get a big name in the UFO community, Dr. J. Allen Hynek, who is one of the most respected ufologists who has ever lived. And he's got some incredible facial hair. Like, give Colonel Sanders a run for his money. The beard, the mustache and beard combo. Amazing. Incredible work. He would go on record and agree with Davis that the accounts were very credible and warranted an actual serious investigation. Let's drop another name. Steven Spielberg was so interested in this case that after Close Encounters of the Third Kind, he began developing a direct adaptation of the Kelly Hopkinsville encounter called Night Skies, about 11 aliens terrorizing a Kentucky farm. It unfortunately never got made. But what it did become was a very vague skeleton for a movie that he did make called E.T. So this one particular encounter is at least partially responsible for one of the, in my opinion, one of the greatest alien movies ever made. Because I fucking love E.T. It's so much fun. What a good movie. In 1957, U.S. Air Force Major John E. Albert said that the whole thing was caused by a silver-painted monkey that had escaped from the circus. A monkey with glowing yellow eyes that also just so happened to be silver, that could take an untold number of shotgun blasts to the torso and then just do a backflip and run away, like Diddy Kong or something. And also, yeah, that's why it was on the roof, because that's where monkeys go. They climb on roofs. The Air Force officially classified this as a hoax in the Project Blue Book files. With they said, "Oh, it's a hoax," and then literally wrote no further comment in the document. They typed the word hoax and just went, "Yep, see ya." Isabel Davis responded to the monkey theory with what's genuinely one of the greatest rebuttals in the history of all this stuff. Quote, "Monkeys are hairy creatures. Monkeys have long tails. Monkeys are notorious chatterboxes. And when shot with bullets, they die." The Air Force offered no counter-argument for this and just kind of moved forward. The more persistent explanation comes from one of my least favorite people. Professional skeptic, professional debunker, professional party pooper, Joe Nickell. Nickell's theory is that Lucky and Billy Ray were shooting at owls, specifically the great horned owl, which looks exactly like what these things were described as. I mean, they are native to the area because they're great horned owls. They are everywhere in the United States. He also said it could potentially be a European eagle owl, which is not native to the United States because it's a European eagle owl. But those things are huge. They're like, they're about 2.5 feet tall, but they have a wingspan of like 60 inches or something like that. And again, both are owls, both have yellow eyes, both are nocturnal, both will aggressively defend their nests. One of my other problems with this theory from Joe is he also claimed a meteor shower took place that night, which explained Billy Ray's initial sighting. When the problem was that Joe, being a scientist and a very smart man, decided to not actually look at any meteorological records that would have shown that there was a meteor shower. And if he had, he would have found that there was no record of a meteor shower. And they kind of keep track of those pretty well, you know. He just winging it, you know. And again, the whole thing with owls, like, it's a 20 gauge shotgun at close range. It's going to explode an owl. They're not just going to poof and fly off. And you can't shoot them repeatedly for 4 hours. And I mean, last time I checked, I'm no bird lawyer, but I'm pretty confident that owls are not, flock birds. I'm pretty confident that they're solitary or in pairs. There's not hundreds of them just popping up all over the place. So the owl theory makes zero sense, and I think Joe knew that. Which is why instead of asking questions about ballistics, he just goes, these people are crazy. It was owls. They're crazy. They're alcoholics. They're from Kentucky. They're drunks. Anytime you see him in anything, like you watch any kind of paranormal shows, there's a potential that you'll see him. He's got like Jeffrey Dahmer glasses, a white mustache, and like the horseshoe ring hair, white hair. He doesn't just try to find a way to debunk it. He's an asshole about it, and will call people out and basically call them stupid for having seen something. He's a condescending prick, would be the best way to put it. There was an episode of, I believe, Monster Quest, where he wanted to test a theory with the Mothman, where he had these cutouts made of the Mothman of different sizes that he would put at different distances from the road. And he would have people drive by at whatever speed it was that they were seeing it on the side of the road. And, I want you to give me a description of the size and the distance of it. And a lot of the people were pretty damn close on the height and the distance away that it was. But because some of them weren't exactly right, that was, 4 feet tall and it was 5 feet off the side of the road. He's like, well, it was actually 6 feet tall and 8 feet off the side of the road. He would just be like, well, these people clearly don't know what they're talking about because, even though they've described the exact thing that I've asked them to describe that they saw, and they were pretty close on the height and distance, but because they weren't exact, they're wrong and they're stupid and they're making it up. I cannot begin. I'm okay with people being skeptical about things. That's fine. You have to be. I'm skeptical about a lot of stuff too, but I'm also open-minded enough to go, ooh, okay, and think about it, critically, instead of just be a douche. And that's all he is. And I think he's dead, and I usually wouldn't talk ill of the dead, but I also don't care because he sucks. So, the reason that this case matters and why I'm actually covering it is because it's one of the most significant UFO cases in American history. I mean, it's right up there with Roswell. And it's not just because of the craft being seen. It's because of the creatures themselves. And this is where we got the phrase that everybody still to this day uses when they're trying to make fun of somebody that had an alien encounter where you saw little green men. And that is in our cultural vocabulary because of this. Even though they were never described by the witnesses as green, they were gray. And, again, the telephone game ruined everything. So, I mean, everywhere you look, you find aliens. Every alien costume for Halloween, the little green dudes in Toy Story, every alien emoji that comes across your comes across your phone traces back to this encounter. And another thing that you can kind of tie this to is the description of these creatures is what directly inspired the creatures from the 1984 movie Gremlins, which, if you haven't seen it, God, what is going on? You really got to go see Gremlins. Spoiler alert, it's fantastic. And of course, there's Pokemon that are inspired by this, and every other pop culture thing that's aliens. You could go to, I don't know, they used to have them at bars where they would sell these giant tall drinks with aliens, and they were always green because little green men. And actually, if you're, I threw this detail in because I am also a nerd. If you do tabletop gaming, if you play Pathfinder, which is a role-playing game, kind of like D&D. I've never played Pathfinder. There, in one of the bestiaries, there is a Hopkins, Hobkins, a Hopkins gremlin. That is a direct inspiration of this also, clearly. And another thing that this did that's really important is this kind of established how people don't really want to report things like this, because you could have a serious encounter like this. You saw something happened to you, but because of how the media ran with this and made these people look stupid, that kind of put a damper on a lot of people reporting things. Because, yeah, maybe these guys were country bumpkins. Who knows? They saw something. They had an encounter with something that they cannot and could not explain. And because that got out, people thought that they were crazy. And because of that, fewer and fewer people would see how these people were being treated and just went, oh boy, I don't want to say anything about what happened to me. Like anytime, like your local news, if there's ever a UFO seen in the sky by somebody and they report it, and then like your Channel 6 News or whatever gets a hold of it, what are the chances that they're going to show that and immediately put the music from the X-Files underneath it? Because like, oh, we're kooky and we're original. Nobody's done that ever since 1995 or whenever that show came out. And don't get me wrong, I love the X-Files. But they don't treat stuff like this seriously on purpose, because it's easier to report that somebody is just a goofball than it is to take them seriously with what they've seen. Yeah, hell with it. I've had experience with this personally. Take this however you want. You can think that I'm insane and I'm out of my mind, but I can tell you exactly what I saw one night. And I'm going to have nightmares because I'm bringing this up, because every time I talk about it, it happens. And again, you can think I'm crazy. That's fine. I know what I saw. Well, I don't know what I saw, but I know what I saw. I just don't know the label of it. It was like 2015. I was playing very like crystal clear. I can still see it. We were living in a single wide trailer that we were renting. I was playing Rainbow Six Siege with my friend Seth and my other friend Kevin, and my headset died. And I was like, well, it's pretty early. It's like 8:30 on a Saturday. I'll run to Walmart and grab another one. It's like a 10-minute drive. That's fine. I decided where we were living. We lived in Chittenden, which is a town that I'm butted up against now. Love it. It's one of my favorite places in the state because it's quiet. It's full of woods. There's also a lot of really weird stuff with it. There's a family up there that used to live there that were pretty big in the spiritualist movement, and one of the only ones that Houdini couldn't prove wrong. So I took the back way into Rutland where Walmart is and turned onto this road that will bring you out onto Route 4 or Woodstock Avenue, which is what it's not on the map as that is Route 4, but the upper half of it is technically Route 4 where it would bring you out. But it drops you down onto Woodstock Avenue, which would bring you down into almost into the middle of town, and then you can get to Walmart from there. Super easy, right? So the road that I'm on is uphill. There's a lot of like little like turns and stuff. A couple of like big sweeping curves that as you go into them, you can't see the exit of the turn. I had a Subaru Baja at the time, which if you're not familiar with that, it's just picture a Subaru Outback with a truck bed on it. Or as my dad as my dad referred to it, my lesbian work truck, which was fantastic. So I'm coming into one of these big sweeping curves, and I come around the corner, and there's an animal in the road on all fours. It is, lack of a better description, fucking huge. It took up the entire lane that I was in. It's like a light to dark gray, kind of varying through the animal itself. The very top, like along the back of it, was gray so dark that it was almost black. Big head, dog-shaped head. I wouldn't say German Shepherd. I wouldn't say Saint Bernard. Somewhere mixed between the two. Like big blocky head, almost like a Rottweiler, but with a longer snout to it. very pointed ears like we'd see with like a German Shepherd, not Dotson ears where they're, no, I'm sorry, Doberman ears where they come to a very sharp point, but pointed with like rounded at the top. Oh, Jesus Christ. Here we go. Okay. The eyes, I couldn't really tell what color they were because of the headlights that I had. They could have been anywhere from like an amber color to a darker brown. But because I had the halogen bulbs in my car, like the yellowish ones, they came up as a more like yellow color. The back legs, everything about this thing screams giant dog to me as I'm seeing it, except for the back legs where if you look at a dog's leg where you have the heel that's way up at the, like where the leg would bend back, this was further down. And for some reason the feet stuck with me, where you'd have like your regular dog feet where they kind of, you've seen what dog feet look like. The back feet were a lot longer than like regular dog feet. The front feet are the part that it didn't have like, it wasn't like regular dog paws at the front. It was more like raccoons where they have like their little fingies. And it's just chilling, standing in the middle of the road. And I stopped, obviously, because I'm not going to hit it. I had a handgun with me at the time. I had a Glock 23, which is a 40 caliber, in my glove box that I don't think would have done a goddamn thing to this thing. And I just sat there for about 5 seconds and stared at it. And it like slightly turned its head towards me, kind of like that, like, why are you here kind of thing. And the nose was like flaring, like, as it would. And it kind of like I don't want to say it snarled because it didn't like snarl like where you get like a dog that's pissed off and it shows you all of its teeth, but like the lips came up a little bit so you could see it. And then this thing just on all fours just walks across the road like it's supposed to be there. Height wise, like at the shoulder. At the shoulder, every bit of 4.5 feet tall, like a small cow height. So I proceeded to continue my adventure to get my headset. And then I called my aunt, who lives just up the road from where we were. And I told her, like, hey, I just saw something in the road. And I told her what it was, and she's like, oh yeah, we've seen that too. Like, what do you mean we've seen that too? She's like, your uncle was on his way to work a couple of years ago, and he was on the same road, but further into town from where I was. And he is pretty early. It was like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. So the sun's like starting to come up, and he saw a bunch of deer run out into the field, which was, it's normal. You see deer all the time. And then they turned and ran directly into the road. And he's like, what the hell's going on here? Because they don't usually just sprint across the road like that. And he looked over and he saw the same fucking thing coming out of the woods. And it like kind of came out a little ways and like U-turned back into the woods and just vanished. And then she is seeing the same thing in a similar area of like out in a field. So I contacted somebody that I knew and was like, hey, I don't know what I just saw, but I saw something. Oh, and by the way, that night I got home and my fiance at the time, my now ex-wife, knew that there was something like weird because I just walked in and I was just white as a fucking sheet. And I told her, and she's like, okay, you okay? And I was like, I don't think so. And I proceeded to like not get any sleep that night. I had horrible nightmares then when I did fall asleep that like So the way our bedroom was set up is we had one of those like 3-part like windows where you have the 2 on the ends that will wind out and then a solid one in the middle. But they were kind of angled. The 2 side ones are almost like a 45-degree angle. It's a single wide trailer. And I just kept having these nightmares that I woke up and I looked out and it's just right against the window. And I had those nightmares until we moved out of there. And I will just sporadically, occasionally, a couple times a year, ever since then, have horrendous nightmares that I wake up like screaming, like, cold sweat, all of the shit that can happen. And tonight will probably be one of those because I'm talking about it because I'm stupid and I can't just block it out and ignore that it happened. So I was like, what the fuck is this thing? Like, it's not Bigfoot. He's like, well, what did it look like? And I was like, he's like, tell me the first thing that comes to your mind when you picture it. And I went, werewolf. And he went, yep, probably. He's a researcher of like Bigfoot, dogmen, all that stuff. And again, you guys might think I'm crazy and never listen to the show again. And that's fine. Because I don't really like to share this. Because it screws me up. Like, I shared it on another show, a show called Monsters Among Us, which if you're into this kind of stuff, you should definitely listen to it. Derek, the host of it, is incredible. It's a call-in show. You call and leave a voicemail. And he actually called me and said, hey, I want you to come on the show. And like, because we've had a lot of people asking about this and somebody saying that they live in that area and they know what it is. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So he gets me on and we're talking about it and I tell my story. And he goes, so one of the people that says that they live in that area said that there's somebody with a greyhound on that road. And I went, there's no way in hell that was a greyhound. I know what greyhounds look like. I know what Irish wolfhounds look like. It's not one of those two. Anyway, so that's my big paranormal secret that I guess you guys know about now. Yeah. Well, anyway, so if you like what we did here today, minus the last part because I don't want to do that again. You want to hear more paranormal and weird stuff on the Patreon? Let me know. I've got a ton of it. Matter of fact, I have an episode planned that I want to have my brother on for again, because we work at a place called the Pittsford Haunted House, which was originally built as a preventorium for tuberculosis. Because we had, back in the day, we had a lot of tuberculosis cases here. And part of their whole research back in the day was they said that vitamin D and sunlight was good for you. And we get a ton of it in the town that I live in. So they built the preventorium here, which is now our haunted house that we love. It's the best thing throughout the year. It's one of the things that I look forward to the most. The preventorium is there for the kids. And then what is now the State Police Academy was what's the word I'm looking for here? Sanatorium for the adults. So if mom and dad had tuberculosis, they went there. We would send the kids to the preventorium to prevent them from getting it. And then from there, it went on to become a hospital for kids with disabilities and stuff like that. And then the town bought it, and we've been running it for 40 plus years. But my brother has done. He's not into the same kind of stuff like I am. He's not going to sit down and read books and do things like that. But he has done so much research into the history of that place that we need to. And as a matter of fact, my phone went off here a little bit ago when I first started recording, of him sending me more pictures, old pictures of it when it was still operational. I got to get him on and we got to talk about that. Getting him on camera is going to be impossible. So that'll be an audio only episode. But we've had some weird shit happen there too, believe it or not. Nothing malicious, but just weird stuff happening. But anyway, if you guys want more paranormal stuff, let me know, because I'm more than happy to do it. Like I said, I'm also just going to do my regular history stuff here, because that's what you came here for, is history. And it's going to be like kind of bite-sized, shorter episodes, like 20, 30 minutes. This one obviously is not, because I'm already at almost an hour, because I had to rant and, do stuff like that. But, so, until we meet again, either here or on the mainframe, we're all going to die someday. So go out and leave a mark on the world, just like these little gray men from outer space did, middle of Kentucky somewhere. Okay, love you. Bye.